Today's guest is Melissa Lyons, who is an international best-selling author, facilitator of choice, and a life coach. She has a very unique way of helping people discover hope, passion, and purpose, regardless of their current situation. So, Melissa, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
You're very welcome. I know we had a bit of a conversation with regards to some things, off air. So I'm excited to add on to those and dive into all of the things. So I'd love for you to just contextualize that and let us know, how did you get to doing what you're doing? Because it seems from what I've read from your website, there's a bunch of different parts of that story. So I'd love for you to break that down for us.
For sure. Yeah, this is sometimes the hardest part is figuring out where to start and where to go. But I think the best place to start is that I spent my life really wanting to be successful, wanting to please people, wanting to follow, the best path. And I did all of those things pretty much as well as a person could do. And then when I was 47 years old, I sold a business that I had built from the ground up. It took me 11 years to build. And by the end, I was really ready to sell it. And it was a successful sale, it was a successful business. And I found myself so deeply, I don't know, unfulfilled. And I mean, career wise, like in my life, I had everything. I had enough money to do what I wanted to do. I had the freedom. I have a husband and two great kids and a house. You know what I mean? Like, no reason to feel sorry for myself. Yet I felt that I lost my identity, and I didn't find a way to take any like pride or joy from what I had created and sold. And so I found myself at that point almost like ready, like it was like enough is enough. Actually, at one point, my husband said to me, he's like, "Are you ever going to be happy?" I'm like, I don't know. And that was when it was that, we all have those aha moments where we're just like, enough's enough. That was mine. It's like, I'm not living like this anymore. Like, just trying to get somewhere that I don't even know where I'm going.
Beautiful. And I think that happens so much with like successful and high achieving individuals. And it's like it's one of those things where you on the come up, like when you're not there yet, it's like you are like, yeah, that's gonna happen to other people, but not to me. Like when I get there, it'll be different because I'm different, right? And so often there's like this major blind spot of what that success actually means, and more importantly, why you are pursuing it. So I think it's such an important thing to, share and explore. So I applaud you for allowing yourself to go there. So, well, actually, if there's anything else you want to comment or add to that, you're more than welcome to.
Well, what I would say so is at that point, it was like, where do I go from here? Because I pretty much lost my identity. And you know, I didn't, I could tell you everything that I didn't want in my life, but I couldn't tell you what I wanted and I couldn't tell you where I wanted to go. So I think that the important part, and I had two at that point, I think my girls were maybe in their mid to late teens. So I had people watching me, and I wanted to set an example of don't live an unhappy life just for the goals. Like find a way to find that inner peace. And so yeah, so I think I just would add that from that moment on, I committed to finding that inner balance and that awakening.
Love it. So, having had this major arc and then this major awakening, where are you at now with all of that or with your business or what you're doing right now?
Well, I can say that I'm in a great place. And what I've learned is every place was a great place because it was getting me to this point. But in those moments of the time from when I sold the business to now, it was kind of like, really, really, this is a great place. But I'm at the point now where I can really put it together and I know exactly what I'm doing with it and where I'm going and my why. So it's been 8 years, almost 8 years, 7.5 years. And it took me a long time to find peace that 8 years is a long time, but it's also the blip of an eye, right? Or the blink of an eye. So I'm at a great place. I've got plans for how my year is going to unfold, and I feel really excited about it.
Beautiful. Love that. So, in that case, like, what are the top problems that you're facing right now?
For me, I don't really feel like I have problems right now, but I would love to talk about all of the problems that brought me to this point. And it's like that self-doubt, that perfectionism that holds you back. I have no problem being vulnerable about me or my life or what I've done, but my vulnerability comes in trusting myself with the life of another that I'm coaching. So that was a huge transformation for me. The whole idea of being distracted and always wanted to be somewhere else other than where I was. Like always wanting, cause and effect is a really big thing that I learned throughout my process. I did everything for the effect. I did everything for the end result. Even when I did my MBA, I don't even know if I cared what I was learning. I just wanted to get that piece of paper so have a job that made more money than someone who didn't have it. So
Got it.
it's that connection to being where you are and finding peace with what you're doing in that moment that I really was missing.
Okay. Which definitely makes sense with the arc of everything that you've shared, right? Like I spent all this time building this business. I sold it. That still wasn't fulfilling. I still wasn't happy. I had to have that awakening. I was doing things for the end result, not anything to do with me or even asking the question of like, why am I doing this or what's the fulfilling piece? So that all makes sense. And I guess what I would invite you to then bring it basically, I guess I'm inviting you. Okay, so bring that into the present. So where are you at now with, because I'm still actually not even clear. Okay, so are you, because you mentioned, okay, trusting myself to left another with coaching. So I know there's an element of speaking and coaching to what you do as your current business. So that's what you're exploring. I guess bring all of that back into the present moment and how does it all crystallize here?
Well, I think for me how it crystallized, and I mentioned to you in our little pre-chat, I had this like major shift, and probably a lot of your listeners have been through something like this as well. Like when it's that momentum is building and building, and then finally like it just sinks in, and you're like, aha. So it's like another aha moment where all of a sudden it's just like I'm in the river, I'm in the boat, and I'm like literally like floating along, loving it. So right now, my third book that I co-authored with Catherine Marshall will be available in the next couple of weeks. So, and it's a book called Freedom Rising from Within: The Ultimate Guide to Freedom from the Inside Out. And so we are taking that book and building a platform academy where, when you go away to a retreat or you have some great coaching session and you come home, you're like, oh, everything's going to be different now. And you do it for a few days and then everything kind of comes back. So we're building, we've built a program that as people read our book, they'll be able to like live the changes, live the transformations. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing from there, of course, everything then falls into place. So it's almost like I've been building all these little fires and now the big fire is just sort of ignited and they've all come together. That's where I'm at now. It's like the big picture is becoming more clear. And before I was like trying to see something I couldn't see, and then not having the faith and confidence of where I was going, building that vision. I think that's probably maybe where you're getting at too. Like it's like I didn't have all the pieces cohesively tied together.
Perfect. Okay. So it seems like there's been a lot of work and progress and like you said, pieces falling together into the present moment experience, which I think is a beautiful thing. So I guess to kind of circle back around with like, okay, well, like it seems like you got everything set. Like it seems like you know what you're doing. It seems like you know what you need to do. What's really like what's the problem?
There isn't right now. Like maybe we need to check back in 6 months and say, hey, did it all happen? This is the first time in my life that I felt this way. I'm in uncharted territories, uncharted waters right now, where I've worked with coaches. I haven't done this alone. I've done that inner work. And so, like I said to you, like the work that you're doing is so paramount to people, especially entrepreneurs, because you get lost and you get pulled in a million different directions. And if you don't have a way to stay the course and come back to your why, you lose your way really fast.
110%. And I agree with you. That's exactly why I do what I do, especially after having,
Mhm.
built and then imploded my own business because of not doing this work. So I get it from many different angles. So you had mentioned you're right now in uncharted territory. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the inner feeling for you being in uncharted territory?
What's funny, I didn't realize I was that till I just said that. You just brought that out of me. What's the feeling? Like excitement, like sizzling excitement. Uh, yeah, I haven't. Like, I've had moments of euphoria where I've loved things, but the other thing you just said that really resonate with me, business is imploding. Oh my goodness, I've had so many things implode over the years as well. And then I find myself in a deep, deep, fast, heavy, dark tailspin, only to pick myself up and find my way back again. So I know that really well. But this one that I'm going through right now is pretty new.
Okay. And do you mind sharing details on like what that
Uh,
is? Or it's up to you, but I'm just
yeah,
asking.
it's details about what? Yeah, I'll talk about anything. My
Okay.
deep, dark ones or the excitement?
Well, let's. I'm always a fan of like going into like if there's a lot of stuff in your past that you've overcome, there's no need to rehash it. It brought you where you are now, and you're here. So I'm always interested in, okay, well, what's here? What's present. So you mentioned the trusting yourself in coaching containers, trusting yourself in stepping into this new uncertain but exciting space, the self-doubt, the perfectionism from before, and is it impacting certain things right now. So that's the things that I'm picking up kind of as the subtext. So what resonates with you is the most relevant?
Well, I guess my journey since leaving my MBA type life has been spiritual. And so this last book, well, actually even my first book that I wrote, I I didn't even have any idea it was happening. And it ended up being a channeling experience. I knew what channeling was, but at no point in my life did I ever think I would be like a person who would experience something like that. So I've had some pretty cool spiritual things happen to me. So this book, Freedom Rising from Within, the process of bringing that book to life really caused me to grow with it. So the book itself and the co-creation from a spiritual perspective has given me a support and a foundation that I don't think I had before either. So that's, I think, the difference. The trust, I don't really need to trust myself because I'm no longer really attaching myself to the outcome. I'm attaching myself to the process and to serving and to I think one of your messages is like the world deserves the gifts that you have to share, the light you have to share. And it's like, yeah, like I'm there now. In fact, my first book that was channeled again, the last page is be the one who shines the light that was mine. Honor me now by letting your shine. And I think that I'm actually there now. I'm not attached to where it goes.
That's a beautiful thing, and obviously a message that I resonate with quite a bit. So I guess then my other way to ask the same question is like, okay, well, how can I best support you here today?
Um, I think just having this conversation is supporting me in and of itself because like we're two people who I don't know your story totally and you don't know my story totally, but we've been through that same kind of like place where it's like, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Oh my God, it all fell apart. Now what? And then you get to the point where you just know that you have a purpose and you have a calling and the world needs what you do. And so you to me are a shining example of the world needs what you do. And that's what drew me to your message.
Beautiful. Well, I mean, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the reflection of that back to me. Um, I guess what I would throw back your way is like, okay, that's a beautiful way to reflect the synchronicity of our messages 100%. And yet
Mhm.
your brain chose it as the answer to the question of like, well, how can I support you? Right. And your answer was actually about me. It wasn't about you. So I'm just curious what comes up for you when I reflect that back.
Well, honestly, I think that we all can support each other, but I don't have a specific answer on how you can support me because there's nothing in this exact moment that I don't feel is being supported in my life today. Last week, that would have been a totally different story. So I don't know what the synchronicity is of the timing or not. But even yesterday morning, it wouldn't have been the same conversation. But what I experienced in like the 4 to 6 hours last night, sitting down and going through my process of setting out my intentions and really defining who I am, who I want to be recognized as, who I want to work with, what qualities that I want to be most important in what I do. And all of that just came flowing to me in a way, like I said, I'd never experienced it before. So I don't have an answer for you.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, if it's about celebrating the fact that you have clarity and you're good, I think that's it doesn't happen often, at least on these calls. It does happen in coaching calls, but like, cool. I'm you would actually be the first one to just come on here to celebrate the fact that you're doing good things and are moving in the right direction. So I celebrate you for that. And it's good to be number one. So congratulations for that. So then I guess just for sake of curiosity, and what would have been different if we had spoken like
Yeah.
would you say yesterday or 3 weeks ago?
Like yesterday morning, I okay, let me go back. Not last night, but the night before last. I went to bed like high on life, excited about what I was doing, knew what I was going to be doing last night. But then I woke up in the morning and I had like no wind in my sails. And I really now, instead of pushing through, I walked away. I watched a movie. I took my dogs for a walk. I did something else. And and then all of a sudden it started to come. And so when I felt ready, I sat down and I went through the process. So I think yesterday morning I would have been telling you a story of like, oh my God, it happened again. I thought I was there and I'm not. And so, but yet, even though I would have told you that, I didn't have that belief I'm starting to have that unshakable belief that those are just blips that I just need to walk away because it's just here. So yeah, I'm talking in circles. I don't usually do this, but again, this is not a normal thing for me. So
Yeah, that's okay. It's not
yeah,
this
it's
conversation is
really
not a
new.
normal
Like,
one for me
yeah,
either.
it's
So this is
not.
good.
Yeah, it is. And I can say to people like, and like, I've been through the darkest of dark and I've not trusted myself and I've sabotaged myself. And, one of the things I work with people myself on is thought nutrition. Because we're one thought of way of going in any direction, and if you're not clear about what you're thinking and what you want to create, then you're creating exactly what is just happening to you, and you're not being intentional about living. And I think that that's one of the things that we really, if we want to have a better life, we can't do. We can't have sloppy thoughts. We can't be lazy with our thinking.
Yeah. In general, I agree with you. And you had mentioned this sense of okay, so if we had spoken yesterday morning, like I went to bed feeling on top of the world, woke up totally in a different state. Then you said, I'm not there yet. And that kind of put you in a bit of a spiral. So what in your words is there? Where is there? What is that?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm not there yet, that I can't sit down and do this work that I had not work, but I wanted to really map out where I was going. And the underlying process that I was working with was a clean slate. And a clean slate means you're not bringing any of your past, your lessons and your learnings and everything will come with you always. But the memory of, and you even said it earlier in this call, you're like, we don't need to hash the darkness, it brought you to this moment. Getting yourself to that point where you can clear out your slate and bring who you are in this moment and just move forward without any of that, that's where you need to be. And I went to bed feeling that way, didn't wake up in the morning feeling that way. So instead of pushing through it, I walked away. And then the beauty of it was within a few hours, I was there, meaning I was there at that ready for the clean slate. And with that clean slate, I was able to sort of co-create where I want to be and then come back to where I am knowing what I get to do to make that happen.
Got it. And just so that I understand your terminology correctly, so clean slate for you would be like, I'm not attached to things in the past. I'm not locked into any negative perspective here. I'm not in any limiting pattern. I have shed like that in this moment, and I have a clean slate to choose the new thing. Is that accurate, or am I missing something?
No, that is accurate. And it sounds simple and it's actually not that difficult, but I don't think people do that enough. Really recognize that every single moment is a complete fresh start. It can be. It can be. And again, you can talk about something theoretically, and then all of a sudden you can embody it. And when you embody it and you feel that, like I said, like it's like tingling through my body, that's when I think you know that you've really shifted, or your consciousness have raised, whatever the terminology is people use. It's like you're ready. You're moving into that next phase of whatever it is. But there's a physical feeling to that change. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to write it down and be different.
Yeah, like you feel a different emotional state or just a different embodied state when you are in that next space, correct?
Yeah, because like I'm not sure of your take on willpower versus soul power. And when I say soul power, that could be anything, but the idea of pushing ourselves into something that might not resonate, and that's what we've always done in the past. That's what got me that empty success. And that's what led me down a people pleasing path. And so the new way is to recognize that we are already enough as we are. And once you've spent enough time, like, building all the different pieces and you're ready to pull them together, it's that clean slate that you're building on that's going to create something new.
And what's your attitude or internal experience of when you're not in that clean space or clean slate
Ugh,
space
I,
rather? Sorry.
yeah, you can become resentful. You can carry guilt. You can carry some blame, some shame. Carry a lot of really heavy, low vibrational qualities around. And so, when you're operating from that, you're attracting that in. So I feel that, a bad day gets worse and a good day gets better.
So
And it's holding that.
it makes sense. Like I agree with all that. So what if you were answer that question from the first person as opposed to the second person? Right? Because I ask you, what's your experience of not being in that
Oh,
clean slate
oh my,
state?
okay,
And
yeah.
your brain went to, well, you would experience resentment. And this is like, it was almost like,
Oh,
this is what it should be
I
like,
did.
right?
Yeah, I said you, but I meant me. I mean a person, but definitely me. I've experienced that operating from like self-loathing. Oh my God. I want to say months, but it maybe could have been years of self-loathing and just not wanting to get out of bed in the morning. And like, not wanting, I didn't want to die because I had children and people who love me, but I did not want to live. And that went on for a long time. And that was a result of operating from exactly that, not a clean slate, carrying with me all of the heaviness that I experienced, or like either from someone or from myself.
Got it. And yeah, that's a very, like, I think it's reflective of the transformation that you have gone through because nobody goes through that darkness and kind of comes out the other side the same by any stretch, right? So what's your experience of that same thing now? Because you're not 100% of the time in that clean slate state. So what's your experience of that? Like when that comes, like it came yesterday, what's your experience of that like now?
So I'm going to repeat myself. Today, I'm trying to think, today's Monday. So on Saturday was the first real day that I stepped into the clean slate context and I was ready. I was like literally ready. So that was Saturday. And then yesterday was Sunday. So today's Monday. So my experience is very new. Like I said, whatever has happened to me in the last 24 hours has me feeling in a way that I've never felt in my entire life. So I can't have, I have no context for you because it's new. But I also have like zero doubt in the fact that it's here to stay. Like, I'm not saying I'm not going to shift in and out, but I know that when I'm not feeling it, I walk away now. I do something that makes me feel good. I understand that what I need to do, and I only create when I'm feeling good now.
Got it. And do you have a fear or a judgment of not being in that state?
No, because I know it's going to happen. It's an absolute definite going to happen. It's, you check yourself too. Like, so one of my processes yesterday was I redefined what success meant to me. And over the years, that's been one of like, oh, that was like, you go through school and you go through life, and it's like that's a question I've always really detested. And then I got asked in an interview maybe 2 years ago, and I'm like, oh, well, success means to me is being incrementally happier, like from one day to the next. Not always happy, but if you summed up the number of seconds in a day that you're happy. Well, now my definition of success is living unconditionally happy, which is a lot different than being happy.
Mm, yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
that's the difference. Unconditional happiness is my measurement of success now.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, listen, I would agree with you. I don't think there's there's any problems or there's anything to really dive into. So unless there's anything else that you feel like I haven't asked or that you want to dive into, whether it's from the like the worksheet that you filled in prior to this and some of the patterns you identified there, or anything else that I haven't asked, I personally I think you're good. I think you're in a very good state. So yeah, it's up to you. Where do you feel like you want to take this?
I agree. I'm in a great state. I'm so happy. How and yes, and I really liked your question about pricing because that to me, even when I was getting where I wanted to be in the past and I was creating, my bridge from working with people, because first groups of people I worked with after I wrote the first two books were people who were grieving. So I had a really hard time charging them for my services. And I wasn't too worried about it because at that point it wasn't really my business. I was finding my way along this new pathway. But until recently, that was one of the biggest sticking points for me.
Okay, so charging for your coaching services, is that accurate?
Coaching services, yeah, programs, charging number one, and then charging fair amount for my time, considering the 10, 20, 30,000 hours you put into your training and feeling good about that. I feel like I bridged that last night and I worked through all that. But if there's anything that's going to kind of catch me, it's going to be that.
Got it. So okay, you said you worked through it. So where are you at with that now?
Okay. Like talk about prices or
Yeah,
just talk about
yeah.
the concept. All right. So when I first sat down and did my financial plan for the year, I looked at having um, a self-care aware essential workshop. And so I was going to charge 6 weeks, a 6 week program with an initial call. They would do the program on their own and then an exit call. And I know you're not going to judge me, but this was my first time through it. Like, an hour into the process, I was charging $444. And I went through, and I pulled all the numbers down. I'm like, okay, this isn't right. So then I went back at it and I was like, okay, no, the $444 will be completely self-directed. And then for 1,444, they can have an incoming visit, do the work, and having an exit visit. So I feel like I pulled myself there, and that gave me the financial picture I wanted. But I haven't put it into play yet.
Okay,
So
why
so
not?
there, like I want to tell you I'm confident and I am, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay, so why not?
Just because it happened last night. I
Okay,
fully
fair.
intend to, but like I don't see it not happening And again, I feel like I've been here before, but not in this moment. Like what I'm experiencing, I've never experienced before. So I feel like I said, we almost need to revisit each other like in 6 months and go like, so did you really happen or did you fall apart the next day? Like, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, all good. So what if you charge $10,000 for it?
Yeah, that doesn't, yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. I don't, I don't have that worth yet.
Okay, so are you okay
But
if
do I
we
think
dig
I have that
into
kind of value?
that?
Yes.
Okay, so I do logically, I know I provide that kind of value for people. I know I can deliver $10,000 worth of value, but it feels weird or not good to charge $10,000.
Yes. And given a room of 10 people, the person who's going to get the value of the $10,000 is going to be not every person in that room. And so I think I must fear. See, this is good. You got to this. I would fear picking the wrong person and not giving them the value. And then I would feel responsible for it, which is why,
So just pause right there.
yeah.
I'm gonna drop you not because I want to cut you off, but
No,
because I
you
see your
can.
brain spinning in 10 different directions. I want to focus on here because I think there's some relevance here, right? Like, so I asked, okay, what if you charge, because you went from $400 to 4,000, you're like, okay, I can kind of see where I can make that jump. And I said, okay, well, hypothetically, what if it was 10,000? So the first place your brain went to was, okay, well, logically, I know I can provide that value, and I don't doubt that. And then the more you kept talking, the more I was like, well, if it was 10 people, then the value wouldn't really be there for everybody. It'd be there for one person.
No, that's not what I meant. Let me
Okay.
clarify. Of 10 people in a room, I'm only working with one person for 10,000. I know I can take a person and give them that value. But if it's a person who's not properly aligned, like you do a really good job, I think, from what I've seen so far, of making sure the people who are working with you are ready. That's the discernment for me. I don't want to work with someone who's not ready and then not be able to bring them through the transformation, even though I know I can, but not everybody's ready for transformation. So
Right.
I wouldn't want to even try.
And that's fair. It makes sense. But then my question to you would be, because it's a hypothetical question, right? To
Hmm.
explore where you might still have lingering issues.
Hmm.
Why would you imagine in a hypothetical that you're charging $10,000 for this workshop slash coaching combination? And you're saying, okay, well, if I had 10 people there, why would you assume only one person would charge you $10,000? At least
No,
that's what I'm
no, it's
hearing.
still
Out of
not
10
that.
people, I would have one charge me, or one would be priced at 10,000. That's what I heard.
No, no, no. All I just meant is out of 10 people, only one would be ready to make the shift.
Okay, so why? Why would you not expect a room full of
Oh,
10 eager people that have paid you $10,000 and they've done that because they're actually ready?
yeah. No, I wasn't. That's not what I meant. I just
Okay,
meant
so
I
what
could
am I
charge
missing then?
$10,000 to the right person. I couldn't charge $10,000 to a person who I didn't feel was going to be able to do the work.
Okay, and do
That's what
you
I was
think
trying to say.
that you would manipulate people into like who weren't ready to give you that money, or do you think
No,
that people
that's
who weren't ready would not give you that money?
no, no, what you're saying is exactly right. It's not what I was saying in the beginning, but my head was there.
Okay, so do you see how that thought of this
Hmm.
would only apply to people who are ready, and it's almost like the amount of people that are ready is very small, so therefore that's probably why I shouldn't do it. Like you've kind of lost before you've started here,
Yeah.
and probably why it was so hard for me to even understand what you were saying, even though it was clear in your head, but then reflected back, it wasn't. Like I was missing what you were saying, yet it's kind of reflective of your own peace of mind around this issue, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like usually people will assume, or let's just say the usual patterns that I've seen are like there's something internally about like I'm not worth that amount of money. That never came up for you. What came up for you was you're discounting other people's experience. Like, well, they're not really ready, so like I can't charge that much because they're not ready. I'm like, there's lots of people that charge $10,000 for a lot of different things. It's almost disrespectful to assume on the other person's behalf that they're not ready. Like, who are you to say whether or not they're ready? If they're giving you money and they happen to be a bad sale afterward, that's a different conversation. but you're presupposing that these individuals are not ready for what you have to offer. It's almost, if you turn that around as a mirror, I'm not ready to offer what I have to offer. So
That's
what lands
very
for you there?
interesting. So you ran and why did you pick $10,000?
Because it was higher than your number.
But so how does one, so this is actually one of the things where I figured it would sort itself out. And this is one thing where I'm kind of like letting it go because I'm not comfortable choosing the price. Every other thing that I've done, I feel like 1,000% the pricing part, it is a real
Right.
big challenge for me.
Especially after this conversation, I can see why.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
right, what I just want to bring to your attention or invite you to consider is your attitude towards it. It'll sort itself out. And it's the one thing I'm not comfortable addressing or
hmm,
figuring out or choosing. Why are you giving your power away to some higher form to do this for you? I understand there's a divine connection to what you want to charge and the alignment with that 110%. But in my experience and in my coaching, that only the surrender works when it's empowered surrender, not hopeful surrender. Right.
agreed. I
And
don't,
it's
because I
again,
don't know. I have
okay,
no idea what to charge, and I haven't. And that, along with everything else, was probably one of those things like into each of the little pieces where it never really aligned.
correct. And I can see why. So now really it
Mm.
comes down to what's your story around charging $10,000, for example?
I'd have no problem paying it.
Okay, interesting.
Like over the years, I've spent a lot of money on my own education and my own learning.
So why are the
Um,
standards different for you and other people?
I would think probably, you know, how we become a product of the community and the people we are with. In my community, in where I've grown up, and all of the people we live in, no one does that. But when I go out and do the courses, of course, I'm with people who do. So I think it's more that's where the limitation would come from for sure.
It's a great awareness.
Hmm.
And from somebody coming from a people pleasing background, right? That's a perfect indicator of how that previous pattern is now seeping into your business, because look at what's unpacking. The people around me say, or I experience them saying, that it is appropriate not to charge this amount. Nobody would pay this amount, so it's not appropriate for me to charge this amount. Similarly, with people pleasing, the standards that I have for myself are different than the standards that I have for other people. You could even say boundaries as well. I'm okay to charge or to pay $10,000, and that's the standard I uphold to my transformation. But God forbid I have the same standards for other people. So how could you energetically, like that's a split energy
Hmm.
out of integrity way to go about creating this offer, right? If I'm not expecting people
Hmm.
to rise to the level of transformation that I have invested in myself, you're going to get exactly the result that you're getting. Oh, nobody's ready to invest $10,000 because you're not ready to hold them to that level of transformation.
Hmm.
So what lands for you
Very
there?
interesting. Did you have a question? If you did,
No, I was just
I didn't know.
so
Okay,
what's
yeah, we're
landing for
sitting.
you here? Like what's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking what's landing for me is there's definitely room for some work here. And you're the one thing that you said that really resonated with me, because I do believe like when I say I'm going to let it work itself out, usually it's like some kind of a divine intervention that comes. Well, look how fast it came. I'm talking to you today. Like I
Right.
asked for guidance last night, didn't feel comfortable with it, and now we're talking. So it came pretty fast.
So yeah, I think that the realization and the awareness of
Yeah.
it came pretty fast.
Well, just even the ability to have the conversation, like.
Absolutely,
I'm not
right?
talking to you next week. I'm talking to you today.
Correct. And going back to exactly what we just discussed prior to that, like you mentioned it yourself, like I feel like when you're talking to me, like you're very good at selecting who needs to work with you, show up on this podcast, like be in my world. And I
Mhm.
would say you're absolutely right,
Mhm.
because I'm extremely clear on the transformation that I can get people. I know how good I am at what I do. This is why I put it out publicly. I know the worth of my transformation, and I'm very at peace with a lot of the people that send me hate mail being like, why are you doing stuff like this? You shouldn't be doing stuff like this, and blah, 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 blah. Right. The reason that I'm pointing that out isn't to toot my own horn, it's to reflect back to you what it looks like to be in integrity with the standard of transformation that I myself am willing to make in the coaching and the work that I've done internally, but more importantly, the standard that I uphold for the people that come into my world, right? Like, I want you to be ready that when we have this discussion, you're like, I want to get rid of this and I want to eliminate this. And this is a bottleneck to my next level. Cool. My expectation is that everybody that shows up, let's just say on this podcast, is at that stage and is serious about going to that next level. Whether that's with me or somebody else, that's a different discussion, right? But
Mhm.
I'm just reflecting back to you that level of certainty and the level of confidence and clarity that distinguishes, like, if you were to remind back how you spoke about your thing versus how I reflect back about it, what lands for you from that?
Oh, just that there's a clear disconnection in terms of my of where I believe I am, where I know I can be versus where I'm actually showing up in that regard.
100%. I'm glad that that's landing
100%.
for you, right?
Oh
And this
yeah,
was
no,
a
I
bit
see
of the
it.
reason why at the beginning, right, we went in that like circle. Like you even said it yourself, I feel like I'm
Hmm.
talking in circles. And I would actually have
Hmm.
agreed with you.
Hmm.
And the reason I kept poking and prodding and kind of being with like, well, if there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. Like we can just end this right now, is like I wanted to reflect back the mirror and see, okay, when squeezed, when really like pushed to like look at the mirror, what actually comes out. And if nothing, cool, I respect that. But if something, then I
Hmm.
know that there's these layers, especially for people pleasing, right? Or historical
Hmm.
people pleasers. That's what they do. Oh no, I'm totally good. Everything's good. Are you good? How is it with you? You know what I like? I will put my needs down, or I won't even connect to my own needs so that I can prioritize your own and go into my people pleasing patterns. So oftentimes when I do work with people pleasers or recovering people pleasers, or whatever you want to call it, I know that there's going to be layers that are not going to want to explore the self, that to explore the needs, simply because that's where most of the hurt is. That's where the admission that I need support, I need exploration, I need somebody to hold me, right? That's oftentimes the biggest desire, but also the biggest thing that you might run away from. So anyway, I know that was a bit of a tangent, but you let me know if anything lands for you there.
Well, what's really landed for me is I'm not surprised that this kind of came up. I'm grateful of the timing of it. And my biggest awareness that you really made clear was my standards for myself are different than my standards for my clients. And for the clients that I'm like, I think that one part of what I worked on yesterday, I need to go back and just redefine who I'm working with and why, and to
Absolutely.
what layer level I'm going to hold them accountable to the process.
And that's also why I asked you about the $10,000, because the person who
Hmm.
shows up to do the exact same, like you had changed nothing about your program, but you attracted 10 people who paid you $10,000 for what you do, they're going to be a totally different type of individual than the
Hmm.
ones that show up for $400, even though your
Hmm.
work is actually going to be the same.
Hmm.
So that's also now clarity in your own ownership and comfort of owning, hey, I'm somebody who can hold a $10,000 individual, or I can
Hmm.
hold 10 of them in a space, even better.
Hmm. And then choose. The other thing I think I need to be really clear on is, do I want to work with those people or do I want to work with the other people? Because one isn't better or worse than the other. Certainly one might be more lucrative, but I also want to really honor my path and my calling.
100%, right?
And
That's
I
now the
really had to
alignment
think about
piece.
that.
Correct, right? You get to make that choice. And I agree with you.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
$400 client is just different. The $10,000 client and how you show up and what you work on is different, but it is a choice. And
Yeah.
if it's a distorted choice, meaning I'm choosing the $400 client because that's within my comfort zone, that's also where I would challenge you as well to be like, well, for somebody who has spent a lifetime of not really being good at getting clarity around what you want and what success means to you and what you find fulfilling, that is a potential like yield sign to like look at and like, let's consider it because like you said yourself, I've paid lots of money to learn what I've learned. I've put in a lot of hours to learn what I learn. Okay. I'm not saying you're going to waste it on the $400 client, but what if the best serving client was actually a $10,000 client? You're the only one that gets to make that choice. I'm merely being the mirror to invite you to consider those possibilities.
Okay. So thank you. And I will. It's very clear. Uh, as you were talking, another thing popped in. I've been like, for example, in this conversation right now, I probably am more moved or as moved as some of the things that I did in some of my very expensive sessions with people. And so that also is something that I want to be really clear about in my own work, that the value that I add is consistent with the price that I'm charging. So I know that comes into self-belief, but I just want to say that too. Just because you're charging $10,000 or you're paying $10,000 doesn't mean you're always getting a $10,000 service.
Yeah. So just to make sure I've correctly heard you on this, so you're saying I paid a lot of money for coaching,
It was
and
me.
this conversation is reflective of a lot of value that I've even gotten or not gotten in those other containers. And I want to make sure that I'm in my integrity that I can deliver something that is worth $10,000 as well.
Yeah, you just brought that to mind as you said that. I'm like, yeah, I think it's important to think about because as I discern between the 400 and the 4,000 and the 400 and the $10,000 client, um, yeah, not every coach is worth $10,000, yet people pay it. I would never want to be in one of them, but of course, I'm the one who can control that, and I get that. So when you talk
So
about dealing with your hate mail and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm ready for hate mail yet, but we'll see.
that's fair. So again,
Yeah,
what I just want to reflect back to you first and foremost, like that quality, I think is the part that's gonna actually get you to be worth $10,000 in your mind. And the reason that I say that is the people that are the actual fakes that end up getting into distorted versions of this work seldom have the self-awareness or the ability to hold that like discomfort that they might not be worth this much money. More often than not, it's the ones that doubt themselves the most that are actually the best at what they do. So, I just bring that up to normalize your concern and to say that, yeah, you're on the path towards that. Number one. Number two, you mentioned earlier, like trusting myself in the life of another that I'm coaching. You can only take somebody as far as you're willing to go yourself. Okay. Meaning that discrepancy that you have right now is in what we spoke about previously of where I don't trust myself to hold the other person at that standard because I don't feel like I'm at that standard. So whatever the deeper root and origin of that is, unlocking that and eliminating that will give you what you talk about, like the clean slate to actually go there.
yeah, that didn't resonate with me as much because I do feel that I can hold people. I don't have any doubt in my ability. My doubt was in what to charge for it because I'm limiting the other person more than I'm limiting myself. Like I'm judging them more than I'm judging myself. And you really did a good job of bringing that to my awareness. I'm deciding for them. And then that decision is reflecting on my pricing versus the opposite. So I love how you clarified that for me. But I don't think that I have a gap between what I can do for people.
Perfect. Yeah. And I actually agree with you on that. It just might have
Yeah.
been how I said it and
Hmm.
how it landed. So yeah, 110%. I
Hmm.
agree with you on that. So I think it's just a matter of semantics. So yeah,
Okay,
all good
good.
on my end there.
Good.
But anyway, so I know we kind of like went around the same issue, but then kind of like circled around it. So I just want to make sure, does this feel complete for you to show something left outstanding?
No, it feels super complete. The outstanding part will be my work that I do around it. Uh, but I love it. It was the most vulnerable piece of the work that I did yesterday, and I was okay leaving it like that, but did surrender it for more help, thinking it would come, not expecting it would come like in 12 hours. But that's
Well, I
pretty
guess
cool.
surprise. Right. Here it is.
Yeah, even when we were talking and you're like, okay, we're done, and I look down and it's like pricing. I have it written down beside your name because you'd said
Perfect.
it on one of the things. So yeah,
Awesome. Well,
I
I'm
feel it
glad
was very cool.
absolutely. So yeah, I'm glad we were able to get to where we needed to get to. So that's always a good thing. Yeah, so floor is yours. Why don't you just close us off with telling everybody where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Okay. Well, the best person to find me are people who are living with like imbalances and misalignments in their life where they just like something is just it's not feeling right in their life and they don't know what it is and they don't have that clarity about fulfillment or purpose or deeper meaning, especially people who are more of the on the highly sensitive side, whether they're called empaths or highly sensitive people. I love working with people like that. And then together we create clarities and we balance the imbalances and we find ways to help them start to create openings and pathways for where they want to go next. Sometimes like it doesn't mean you want to change your career or you've had some major trauma. It just might mean like you're just not happy and you know that there's more. You have that inner knowing. And so you can find me at melissa-lyons.com. And I have a pretty cool little 11-day program where you can do some insights and journaling called 11 Ways to Create Better Days. And you've got the link there to share with people. And so that, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Beautiful. Yeah, as always, we'll include all the links in the show notes. But Melissa, yeah, thank you very much for allowing yourself to stay in the fire
I
long
want
enough to get somewhere. I know it's not an easy thing to do. I know it's not the funnest of things to do. But I just want to commend you for staying in it till you got there. So good job.
thank you. I feel that I'm really glad there was so much value in it for me. Appreciate it.
Beautiful. You're very welcome. So yeah, we'll include all the in the show notes. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.